product owner beyond Scrum. Hope you can see my screen right now. Great. So what are we going to talk here today? I will share some of my experience on why you need to go beyond Scrum to succeed. And this is really based on my experience, where I failed, where I screwed up. And I will try to give you some hints of how you can do it differently. So by the end of this talk, you should have some idea where to find opportunities to make it better, where to figure out how to create value sooner. So let's start like this. I want to look at one thing that happens in many companies, the status quo. Let's say you land in a place as a product owner, and then what happens? Generally, when you land there, at least that happened with me, there's something that happens quite often. And I'm talking that because I worked for 11 companies now, and from Brazil to Germany, I've been in Colombia, Dominican Republic, in different places, and I always found more or less the same. And what happens is there are some people, top of the organization, sometimes they are the C-level, executives, top management, choose the name you want, but there are some guys there. And generally, these guys, they will define what needs to be done by when, and sometimes even by whom. And then what happens? They will craft something very shiny and beautiful like this, a product roadmap. Will be really prescriptive. And then what happens? There's a kind of a fence between these guys here, the Scrum teams. So Scrum teams are generally not part of crafting a roadmap. And then top management, C-level, you just do this, throw the roadmap over the fence. What will be the reaction? How will Scrum teams act to that? What's that? Why does that matter? Which problem are we solving? So questions. There's not a commitment. They don't understand what is happening, but I have to deliver. There's a deadline already. So this is not something I'm telling you just to blame executives. The thing is, this is going to happen. We need to learn how to deal with that. Because if you don't deal with this properly, then we cannot live up to the responsibilities of a product owner. So sometimes we need to step back and help the organization change how they work. You can just do as it's said here, but then what's going to happen? In this scenario, the role of a product owner will be slightly different than what's supposed to be. You have kind of limited responsibility if you accept that blindly without challenging or even coaching the others to see differently. One of your main responsibilities will be gather requirements. You ask what needs to be done, what are the requirements, what is behind the request, but in a requirement level, not looking into the problems that you want to solve or the outcome you want to deliver. And then you have to manage stakeholder expectations. That's most of the job when that happens. And one of the things you're going to spend most of the time is managing the backlog. And then I say you descend to a kind of backlog owner. Scenario happened with me. I used to have an extensive backlog with hundreds of items. And when I looked there, the items were like related to things I discussed with teams 2 years before, and they didn't make sense, but I was not brave enough to remove them from the backlog because I talked to someone. I promised that. So if it gets into the backlog, it never gets out unless it makes you sprint. But that's not our job. Our job is not only to maintain the backlog. Our job is to create value. And then the goal of a product owner here is to maximize the amount of features. But generally it happens that we create things nobody needs. And we have to ensure the product teams meet deadlines. Does that sound like a value maximizer? Does that sound like a product owner accountability? I don't think so. So this is a problem I see happening when we just bow to the status quo and follow it blindly. And the challenge I see, the biggest problem is then product owners will change. Will not be product owners, will be waiters. Imagine just going to a restaurant. You arrive there, the waiter comes, what do you want to eat? That's a question. Have you chosen your drinks? Can I take your order? And the waiter will take whatever you ask, won't challenge you. Maybe you're on a diet. Maybe you should not eat something. Maybe your spouse will go crazy with you if you eat that. Waiter doesn't care about it. Waiter will just pick that, walk, send to the kitchen. The kitchen will cook the dish, whatever it is, and come back. Maybe the waiter will say, this dish goes very well with that, and so on. Still not trying to understand what makes sense for you, just pleasing them.
Ah, fogo, não estou a perceber. Estás-me a ouvir?
Right?
Estás-me a ouvir?
I think there was a mistake, so I just muted.
Okay. Yeah, so the problem I see with many product owners is lacking, I would say sometimes not even the courage, but lacking the knowledge where to challenge. We don't want to pick all fights. We want to find step by step where we can change something and make it work better. I don't think you want to be a waiter. I have been a waiter for more than 4 years. It sucks. I just realized that after a long time that I was not a product owner at all. There was something dramatically wrong on how I work. And I thought it was right. Stakeholders love me. I was maximizing the velocity of the team. After 6 months working together, we went from 30 story points per sprint to 62. Amazing. More than 100% improvement. On what? And nothing. Didn't change value. Change the amount of features we ship. So that's not the role. The role is not to be a waiter. When that happens, your focus will be changed from delivering value to pleasing stakeholders. You do as they say. You try to give them what they want, which may not be what end users need, but you are trying to please them. In the short term, that will work perfectly, but in the medium term, you will be surprised. Some wrong aspect also. You get too busy writing better user stories. You write them so well that no developer ever will ask you a question. They will just go and implement. So I think that great product owners actually write horrible user stories, because then developers will ask you the questions about the problems, and then they will understand the problem before talking about solution. And also the focus of a waiter is about maximizing features. Just take the waiter picture. Your focus is about maximizing the amount of clients you get, the amount of things they eat. It's not about doing what they need, for sure not. And then you start having a weird conversation about estimation. So I don't know, this doesn't help. We start talking about the future. How long is it going to take? Is it 8 story points, 13 or 2-1-1? Who cares? If it fits in a sprint and we can deliver, that's what matters. Can we reach the goal? The most important is understanding the problem behind what you were going to solve. I like one of the analysis from Martin Dauman. He's also an editor in Series Scrum. He says, like, we should stop estimating and start forecasting. He used the analogy of a weatherman. The weatherman uses information we have right now to estimate, like, to forecast what is going to be the weather, for example, on Monday. But then maybe on Sunday, there is new information available. And then the weatherman will just change, saying, well, the forecast changed. I have new information. And estimate what I see. The trap is we start talking too much on an abstraction layer, and then we take too long to get hands-on. The only thing I see that matters when we are talking about estimate is getting clarity on the problem so that we can take the first step. And then we learn, and then we start updating. It's more important about learning than trying to be predictable. But when the focus is wrong, that's what you are going to see. And another aspect is avoid mistakes. So if you commit to something, you've got to deliver. If you miss the deadline, it's a mistake. And I think that the more processes we create to avoid mistakes, the more we kill creativity. And that's not what you want with Scrum teams. You don't want to kill their creativity. You want actually to unlock their potential. You want to inspire them to. And what's written here, you have little chance of inspiring any team. And you can see the results are dramatic when you have product owners, kind of backlog owners, the way I'm describing here. The results are software engineers, user research, or whoever working in the team start getting uninspired and then demotivated. And sooner or later, this person is just gonna quit, because what is the need for me? Just to deliver what the guys from the beginning want? So why am I here? And I think the reason we go to work is not to deliver features. I like quoting here Jeff Patton. This quote here resonates a lot with me. Remember, at the end of the day, your job isn't to get the requirements right. Your job is to change the world. It's to change the world where you are in, to make your software a little bit better, to make your product solve the problems that users care about. So this is why it matters to be a right product owner. But sometimes we focus too much on the solution space, on the delivery part, and we forget the problem space, the discovery part, or maybe we even think that this is not our responsibility. And that is where I see that we need to go beyond Scrum. Scrum tells us that we have to create value. It tells us the right things need to happen. But how do we do that? We need to learn how to do it. And here's what I think. When too much energy goes to execution, too little is left to do what matters most. We need to spend time understanding the problem space and the outcome we want to deliver and do experiments. So fail fast, learn fast. So today I see still a resistance about failing. Here in Germany, for example, whenever I interview a product manager for my team, I ask one question. Can you walk me through a failure you had? I want to know your contribution and what you learned from that. A lot of people tell me, well, here in Germany, we don't like talking about failure. So let me give you a story where there was something and I learned something. Some people even avoid talking about this. It's like it's bad. So I think it's actually bad to create a plan and believe the plan will deliver on the needs. Because the faster we fail, the faster we learn. So now I'm trying to use the definition of Jeff Bezos. What Jeff Bezos says is, in Amazon, we don't accept failure. If someone fails, we fire the person. But what we have here is an experimentation culture. So an experiment has an expected result. If we meet this result, we continue experimenting. We invest more into that. But if it doesn't meet the result, we learn from it and we move on. He transformed the word failure into experimentation culture. So this is something that I encourage understanding, because it's not about following a prescriptive roadmap. That's not going to help you. And why does that happen? That happens because of some common mistakes that we need to solve them. The first one I see is many people still interpret Scrum as a delivery framework. Some people even say, just ship to the Scrum team and then they will deliver. That's what is supposed to happen. I disagree with that. I think it's way more than that. And output over outcome. Of course, it's easier to focus on the output. It's easy to fall in love with solution. Everyone has an idea. We can imagine a solution and then we can plan that. But what about the outcome? What is the result we want to achieve? So this is something that almost never happens. So you need to push for that. You need to help people think differently, because an outcome is something that you can deliver that in different ways. An output is something that you deliver that the way it is, because it's already defined. Another trap I see is about managing versus leading. The name product owner, for example, for me, it's a little bit tricky because it entails you own something. So imagine if I own my house, I define what happens in my house. If I hire someone to change my apartment, I will tell exactly what the person is going to do. I don't want the person to do differently because it's my house. I own that. I define. But in a product, it's a little bit different. You lead the teams. And a great leader will lead by context, not by control. And this is something I'm still missing. Some signs you are going to see is product owners attending daily to micromanage what developers are doing, looking to the burn down chart obsessively to see if the team is gonna meet the output expectation. Another scenario would be signing off tasks from developers. It's part of definitions of done. Product owner has to accept. So this is not about leading. This is about managing. It's a bit different. And then you will be overwhelmed. You'll be overwhelmed. And then you don't have time to learn about the problems. And then you become a backlog manager and not a product owner anymore. And all of these that I'm sharing, something like, you know, I've done that, been there, got the t-shirt several times already, but I'm just tired of this. So I'm trying to help people to escape from these traps. So that is the point. Scrum doesn't tell you how to succeed as a product owner. You've got to figure out that on your own. And there's no simple answer to that. Every company is different. Organizations are complex. That's a reality. But you need to know which questions to ask. And that will help you uncover opportunities to create value. So some things here that you need to look in the attitude. We're going to have a mirror board here, not a mirror board, a Mentimeter soon that I want to learn from you. But before that, I'm just sharing some things here. You need to look about this. What is coming first, output or outcome? Generally, I see output over outcome. And what happens? Stakeholder will pressure team for more features. It doesn't matter how much you deliver. You have to keep delivering more. So this is unsustainable because it's kind of, there's a weird thinking behind it. The thinking behind it is a great product is the one that has nothing else to add. Keep adding features and then your product gets great. I challenge that. Just look at the great products. They are uncluttered. They are minimalistic. Look at Google. Google search. How many features do you have in the homepage? As far as I know, you just type something and hit search. Is it because Google doesn't have enough money to change that to add more features? Or maybe because they are not creative enough? Or maybe because they nail down the problem they want to solve? Following plans over embracing the unknown. That is the nature of us, human beings. We search for security. We are not comfortable with the uncomfortable. The unknown scares us, and the plan will give the security we want. And when that happens, we blindly follow that. And I think it's like Mike Tyson says, no plan can survive a punch in the face. And that's what's going to happen. You do something, and then you will be punched on the face. You need to react to that, not what is in your plan. So prescriptive roadmaps lead teams in pointless direction. I followed many roadmaps already, just to stress out teams and miss the point. We had weird discussions that contributed nothing to value. We were talking about users without even knowing who the users were, what kind of problem we were solving for the users. We missed the point because we followed the plan. Connected to these, opinions over evidence. Everyone has an opinion about anything, but you need to defer opinion from evidence, because evidence is something that you observed happening. You have something that justifies what you're talking. Maybe your evidence is weak. It's okay. You still have to recognize that, but then you can use. But when we're talking about opinions, you end up in a situation that the highest paid person in the room, the hippo, will be the one calling the shots. And believe me, you don't want to be there. You want to help this person step back and come to the evidence and then develop based on this and learn. And when you're focused on opinions, you go into kind of a meeting arbitrary deadlines is more important than learning. Nobody's trying to learn. It's kind of weird. That's not value-driven mindset at all. And I think the last one I have here before the exercise, risk avoidance over exploring opportunities. I hear a lot from people. What are we doing to mitigate the risks? I used to hear that a long time ago when I imagined myself being a project manager. 2011, I wanted to become a project manager, but these things kind of annoyed me. And I said, oh, no, it's too complicated to me. I don't deal well with complexity. I'm a simple person. I like simplifying everything. But still nowadays, I see questions like, what are the risks we have? How can we avoid the risks? And when we look at these questions, It is like, how are we dealing with our fears? And I try looking differently. What are the opportunities we have here right now? How could we benefit from this opportunity? Because for me, it's the following. Where you put your focus is where you can drive things. So if you put your focus on avoiding risk, you're going to avoid them, but you are going to miss the opportunities. But if you maximize opportunities, you will learn about risks on the way and you can deal with them. It's just a different approach. It has worked better for me. So the fear of failures destroys chance of innovation. It's where you decide to look into. And what happens here? I showed some of the anti-patterns I observe. And we say a lot that product owners need to be empowered. Reality is you won't be empowered in the beginning. This is not a given. It is something that you need to earn it. There are different ways of earning it. Sometimes you need to read between the lines and deliver results, and then you can earn the trust. Sometimes you need to earn the relationship. So it is step by step. But I can tell you, remaining on the comfort zone and doing what the others tell you won't give you the empowerment you need. For example, Steve Jobs used to say one thing that is quite interesting. He was highly opinionated. He shared ideas very aggressively. But actually, he always asked people what is wrong with the idea. He wanted to learn from the others, even if he was super strong with his ideas. He expected the others to prove him wrong. He expected the others to challenge him. The thing is, Steve Jobs had a passion. So the others may refrain from challenging him because he was strong, but he expected the others to challenge his ideas. And this is what I observed in my career. Many times I received roadmap after I learned was wrong, and I start challenging. I start asking, what is the goal behind it? What is the outcome you want to deliver? Which evidence do you have? This will give us what we expect. Can we try learning from the end users? That would give us better chance of creating value. So now we are going to have the product owner health check that I want to hear from you. So there are some items here that I want to talk to you. Let me send a link. It's in a Mentimeter. So we're going to talk about some specific items. And please go to Mentimeter and fill this. We have here product owner check. This is, I want you to reflect on your scenario. How do you see these in your day-to-day work? Product vision, product strategy. Is it something not present at all? So it is either absent or not present in your day-to-day, or is something that you use every day and it drives your decisions, it drives your action. Just put here, just for us to have a health check. I want to hear from you, and then we can exchange more about it. Very curious how you're gonna view this one. Quite interesting how this is developing. So we already have 6 people. This is just a reality check, and I will share one thing. In 2012, when I got my first job as a product owner, to be honest, I would put everything as 1 because I didn't even know these words. But you could ask me anything about the backlog. I would tell everything about each item inside there. And what is the tricky here? The trick is the following. The first ones, like vision, strategy, and goal, if you don't have them, it will be very hard to have the others. So it will be very hard to define your business model if you don't know what your vision is, or if your vision is fluffy, it doesn't give you direction. So the business model can become everything or unclear, so you don't know where to focus. And one here that scares me is about value proposition canvas. You can use another tool, it doesn't need to be this one, but do you really know like your customers, like what kind of pains they have, what kind of gains they aim to achieve in the tests they do? So if you don't know that, you have a problem. And assumptions are quite tricky. I put here naming assumption and testing assumptions, because sometimes I see teams focusing on validating assumptions. They name assumptions and they search for reasons to justify doing that. And then they fall into confirmation bias. Because I can tell you, if you think something is going to work and you are sure of that, you're going to find reason, yes. So you will have a confirmation bias. And then what happens after? It happens a commitment escalation. So the more involved you are into something, the more you want to invest there, the more willing you are to keep investing into that, even if it doesn't make sense. You still think, well, I don't want to lose the investment I had there already. This is what happens with relationship. If you are in a relationship for 2 or 3 years, you may not break up, even if it's not working, because you have already invested 3 years. It happens in software development, it happens in everything. So all of these here, I would say, they are opportunities for you to challenge something. So if your product vision does not empower you to make decisions, it is a chance to get a sharper vision there. If your strategy doesn't help you define the way you're going to do and the trade-offs you need to make, it is another chance. And if you don't have a product goal, you can be sure your product backlog will become like a list of everything. How can you challenge what goes into the product backlog and what doesn't? How can you ensure your teams can focus on one thing at a time? You can't. And the last part is more about the execution. So naming assumptions, testing them, learning from failures. So this is connected to a discovery process. What I learned the hard way is if we don't name the assumptions, then a tragic fate is ahead of us. And I generally, I face like I heard this sentence: assumptions are the mother of all fuck-ups. One person told me that. And then I always step back and say, what I'm assuming here that's going to happen. And then I always realize there is something. And then I have the chance of testing. So how can you change that? You can change that by influencing, by asking questions. So you can influence on this. Do a check, present to the others in your company and say, this is a list that we have. Other companies would do different and they would have better chance than us in succeeding. Then you can just ask your top manager and say, do you want to be behind the competition? Do you want to fail? Do you want the others to beat us? Do you want them to kick our ass? Generally, when you ask a no question, people get and they want to talk. So that's what happened with me. I don't like asking why questions. I like asking questions that lead to no, because it opens to a conversation. So this is something that you can look and challenge. I put here the items for you. I can share the presentation after if you want. These are some aspects here. Another thing I want to give to you is the power of simplicity. So this is the last part, going beyond Scrum. So if you don't have any of that, it might be a little bit hard to start creating that, but you can at least start having the conversations that will lead you to more value. One of the things I like encouraging you to do is to understand your scenario. Try looking at 2 aspects, the empowerment you have and the learning speed, and share that with the others. What I learned in my career was something that if you lack empowerment and you cannot learn from what you do, you will end up in a feature factory. So sprint in, sprint out, crap in, crap out. That's what happens. So you keep delivering. But if you get to a moment that you are learning, but you're still not empowered, then you are frustrated because you know what you're delivering is crap. and you know you have chance of creating more value, but you lack the empowerment to change the direction. But maybe here you can still influence people by sharing your knowledge and let them make the decisions. You do your best to influence. But then it comes to the other scenario. Maybe you were trapped in a feature factory for a while, just got bored and say, yeah, just another job, that it is what it is, I don't care anymore. So you get uninspired, but then leadership changes and you are empowered now. You are empowered to make the calls, but you're just not used to. You don't know how to use this empowerment. And then you become as an uninspired team. But once you are empowered and you have a learning speed, then you become a game changer. So you're the ones who can disrupt industries. You can create products that make sense, that change people's life for the better. And in Scrum, I generally see 3 phases. And for me, it's what I observed. I know everyone may have a different phase, but in my scenario, I have seen the beginning is a kind of a faster waterfall. We kind of do more or less the same, but in faster cycles. My first implementation of Scrum was 4-week sprints. It was just a faster waterfall. Then we reduced to 3 weeks and 2 weeks. And then we moved to a feature factory. So we were shipping features at the speed of light. So sprint after sprint, we created a lot of features. But then we realized something was wrong. We started challenging things, and then we could move to a value-driven. So these are the phases I have seen, and I have seen that in different companies. But as I said, this is my experience. But it's important for you to understand where you are in and help the others move to the next phase. One thing I like is having the right conversation, because I believe that product teams are trapped and we need to help them untrap themselves. One way is try to start simple, because you don't want teams to deliver crap. Delivering something that nobody needs is not why you go to work. So try identifying problems that are worth solving. I like using this Venn diagram here. Customer, very simple. I have seen that many places already. I'm pretty sure of that. But what you want to see is whatever you receive, doesn't matter if you don't have product vision and so on, just draw this diagram and start saying, okay, where is this? If you're talking about something that customers care about and you have the technology to do it, but you cannot deliver business value for that, then it's desirable and feasible, but not viable. So here it means you will burn money. Can be an investment for the future, but for now, you're not going to get anything directly. But it can happen the other case. Maybe the customers want and it's prominent for business, but you don't have the technology for that. You lack how to implement. So here, it can be something it will take you forever and you don't get it done. So you just need to know what you are stepping into. And here is a big danger, very big one. Business wants and is prominent for business. You can do that with your technology, but you just forgot to check. You forgot to check if customers want that, if they desire to have this. And I see this is most times where our energy goes, because we forget about the customer. We assume we know their needs. So just position things that you receive, the requests, and ask people. And if you don't have the information customers want, it's time for you to do a test, to learn from them. Because what you want is the sweet spot, is the intersection between customers, business, and tech. And here is where you can make a change. So this simple conversation will help you move from a trap scenario to the other. You cannot change everything at once, but you can influence people to start thinking differently, step by step. You know your scenario better, you can challenge some things. And you can simplify prioritization, because then it comes, let's say, you got to the sweet spot there, you got the 10 items. What do you do now? Which one goes first? You don't want to start all of them in parallel, because the more you start in parallel, the slower you become. You want to pick one and deliver that fast, and then you learn. So that's what you want to do. I like using like a 2x2 matrix. You can choose what you want. Sometimes I put business value, customer value, and I try clustering them. Here I use one example of potential impact and easiness of implementation. When something is hard to implement and the impact is low, I would say it's a waste. Avoid doing that. I will talk about legal stuff here in a minute. I saw this. Nice to have. Nice to have would be, for example, very easy to implement, but value is low. Then we go to this because it's easy. And then we have some bets. It's important to make bets, but you just need to know it is a bet. So for this, you should speed up your learning time. And the others are the value maximizers. About legal stuff, you need to know the impact of legal stuff, because I hate when someone comes and say, it's legal, we must do it. I say, legal is as everything else. You need to understand the impact that can cause and the probability, and then you make a choice whether you want to invest in that or not. Let me give you a concrete example. When GDPR started in Europe, I was working in an online shop. And then we had a newsletter, and that was automatically subscribed in the checkout. And we had to change the checkout because of that. And then legal, you must change this and so on and so on. And the potential problem was big, but then I want to understand this. The newsletter generated no more than 40,000 euros per year in a business of 300 million euros. And then I said, why do we have this newsletter in the first place? Why does that is important? That was not important at all. And I didn't want to put some more checkboxes in the checkout just to increase the chance of people dropping. So I said, we just need to stop this newsletter and not have even the legal problem. But legal is not a term that says mandatory to implement. It is a term that says you have to analyze and understand the potential impact of that. If it is a risk you want to take or not, and how you can solve that. If you have to solve, then you will do it. But don't take that blindly. It can trap you. Many people use the word legal must do it. I don't think it's like that. When you are prioritizing, what I like recommending, it's the last part here, is look at some aspect here. What is the potential outcome? How important is that for customers? The number of customers you are impacting? Potential to differentiate. You don't want to match your competition. You want to stand out. You want to differentiate from them. And the other is your ability of solving this problem. Can you be supported by stakeholders? Do you have the technology to do it? Does it work in your scenario? So these are aspects I encourage you to look at. To give an example, when it comes to customer relevance, might be you have found a problem that is super critical or an opportunity, but then you realize that it's less than 1% of your audience. And you found another thing that is kind of simple, but could make a small improvement for 90% of your audience. Which one you want to pick? So you want to deliver value to more customers. So that is what you want to do in general. And you may look at these and say, what about creating a scoring method from these? We say potential outcome gets a 10, customer relevance gets a 5, and so on. And then we make a math, and that's it. So we put an Excel and create. No, that's not what I encourage you to do. What I encourage is to have an exchange, compare and contrast. And then you make a decision based on what the others know. Because in the end of the day, a prioritization is a bet. When you prioritize something, it doesn't mean you go from beginning to the end with a delivery. You will learn from that. And it's like a two-way door decision, you know? You open the door, you enter there. If you don't like what is in it, just close the door, go back. It's okay, you drop it, you take something else. It's not a one-way decision. It's not like doing a merger and acquisition that you cannot go back, not that easily. So just simplify and try having the right conversations. And these will potentially help you.
David, I'm just going to give you a 10-minute warning.
Good. Yeah, we are just finishing then.
Cool.
That is the last part, and then I will open for the questions. Encourage, like what I want to say is, no matter the scenario encourage teams, step back and challenge the status quo. I gave you some hints where you can look at product vision, strategy, value proposition, canvas, how you name assumptions, how you test, how you learn from failure. I give you some ideas how you can have conversation, but you can have more. The main point I want to make is do not accept the status quo as unchangeable. You can influence. You can make a change step by step. That's what I want to share with you today. We can go into questions now, and I will give you a link that I would like to hear your to get your takeaways from this lesson. I would be super curious to see if you're taking something with you, if it's valuable or not, or yeah, just to listen for you.
Cool. Thank you, David. And I'll stop the recording now. Just